Welcome to the Raw Love Podcast. I'm your hostess, Kelly Love. This is your go-to for spiritual adulting, where we dive into the topics that spiritually evolve us. Because life does not always have pat answers and happy endings. It is untamed, unpredictable, with raw moments of confusion and darkness. Yet underneath all this wildness is a relentless love that ravishes us. Journey with me through the mysteries of life as we discern what it means to be a spiritual being living a human experience. This season of podcast, I'm featuring strong women who are embodying the way for our new earth and showing others how to do it. It's a season of sharing all the tools you have access to heal yourself so you can feel into what is the medicine you need to thrive. Welcome back to another episode of Raw Love, and I'm excited for today's guest. This is our second attempt at recording. Our first attempt, we went so deep and we thought maybe we should rein this in a little bit and give it a little bit more direction and maybe not use so many trigger words that'll get us censored and canceled. So here we are again. This is Katie Holland. She is an award-winning sacred dance therapist and the visionary creator of Awakened Bellydance. She is a renowned professional dancer and deeply passionate about empowering individuals through self-initiation and conscious movement. Her diverse expertise includes being a senior innerdance facilitator and trainer, access consciousness practitioner, energy whisperer, I love that, and PADI Mermaid instructor. Known for her skill in healthy Kundalini integration and shadow work, Katie has helped thousands worldwide transform their lives through her deeply embodied teachings. And since 2006, she has immersed herself in the rich culture and spiritual landscapes of India, Bali, Bulgaria, and now Egypt, where she walks the alchemical path of the Blue Lotus. Katie has performed for Bollywood celebrities and high society while studying under her masters of sacred cultural dances, tantra, shamanism, and energy healing. Currently based in Dahab, Sinai, she offers a wide array of classes, trainings, and lotus ceremonies at her home studio, the Lotus Rises Studio. Katie also leads transformative series retreats across India, Egypt, Zanzibar, the UK, and beyond. Known for her intuitive abilities to hold sacred space, Katie's commitment and wealth of experience shines through in the global workshop trainings and retreats that she creates. Wow, that is so much. Thank you for coming and bringing all this wisdom here. Like, what an introduction for today's topic, which is a little bit different, and I'm excited about it. I feel like you're going to be educating me and the viewers at the same time. I'm sort of in my own process of this, and it's a very potent and profound topic. Today, we're going to be exploring a woman's bleed and the connection to her womb and how that invites us into a deeper understanding of our body as the sacred communicator. And so Katie is going to share with us her perspective on why it's vital to disconnect from the moon cycle and share with us her process to clear the umbilicus from conception downloads. This is all new to me, so I'm excited to have you. Thank you so much, Katie.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. And as you were reading my kind of bio, I was thinking it's like when I'm on the phone to best friends that we're trying to leave and going, and something else. And 2 hours later, you're still there.
I love it because all the women that come on here have such amazing bios, and my personality is like very direct. And so my bio, when I submit it to podcasts or whomever, it's so short, and your bios inspire me to brag on myself a little bit more. So I love it. You deserve it.
Yeah, well, so do you.
Thank you. So let's open this conversation. For a lot of the spiritual communities, it's very common for women to talk about syncing to the moon cycle, or this is my moon cycle. We sometimes don't even call it our bleed. We call it our moon cycle. And you're coming from a much different perspective. So I want you to share with our audience your perspective on what a woman's natural cycle is.
I feel, like the saying that every snowflake is completely different. And
maybe speak just a little bit louder so we can hear you, or come closer.
Um, okay, I've got my. So, you know the saying that every snowflake is different, like completely a different blueprint. And it's, of course, the same for each of us, for everybody on the planet. So we each have our own natural cycles in everything, whether it's through the day, like when we're hungry or when we want to sleep or when we have different kinds of emotions. So I feel that there's also a very natural cycle that we have as women to bleed. And the idea that we're all pulled to this object of the moon kind of fills me with horror of like what's like why does this have such a control potentially over our bodies, and yeah, where does that come from, and how are we in some kind of abeyance to that, or like we're working together in that. So I know it might sound like a bit of a strange thing, strange concept, but I've spent the last few years to move my cycle away from being with the moon, because I was also finding that I would jump between the new moon and the full moon, kind of with summer and winter. And I was tracking this for years, and I was thinking, why is this happening? And I felt much better with one than the other. And then in the moments where it was jumping and it might be on the quarter moons, I would feel really terrible, like something is just not right here. And then almost like, okay, clunk, you're back in the system again of of the sort of collective moon cycle. So I started to think, well, what if I could get off of this completely and I'm still in what my natural cycle is, but totally away from any major points of the moon. And in the last couple of years, that's what has happened. And I feel really much more free in my body with this. And also the way that I bleed changed as well. It got much lighter.
It's interesting you say all this because when you word it that way, like it sounds horrifying that everyone would be connected to a moon. I mean, it does sound horrifying to have the whole world bleeding at the same time, and just understanding like what our different stages are as we're leading up to the bleed. Like it's not like our cycle is just the bleed. That's just one expression of our cycle. Like that does seem insane. And what I've noticed as I've also just kind of shied away from all of this new moon, full moon stuff, like it just seems like an energy grab in the spiritual world. And it's almost like that's what's happening with the moon. It's like making such a big fuss about these 2 days that we give it so much energy and forgetting like there's all these other 28 days, right? The other days of
Yeah,
the month.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so like I naturally started disconnecting from like the fad of the new moon and the full moon cycle. And then I just started noticing like what would happen before and after I would bleed. And I started noticing that my body was syncing it to what I needed, what I was working through, what I was clearing. Like similarly, we were talking about how as we're both recording this session, our second attempt, we're both on our bleed. And for me, it technically came a little bit early, but it was also right on time because of what I was emotionally working through and doing a clearing. And as soon as that event happened, my body's like, all right, now we're ready to let go of this energy.
Yeah, and also for me the timing, because as you know, I've been traveling so much the last month, and I'm traveling again tomorrow. So these few days that I have at home, my bleed has come at the perfect time that I can be in my little nest, and I can do things at home because I'm unpacking, washing, repacking. So I've not got to be out anywhere, and I can sit here online, and I'm teaching classes and things, and doing this and another podcast. And it's the most perfect timing for what's happening in my life right now. And I've been noticing this also with retreats that I do and teach trainings as well, that it whereas before it would often come in the middle, and I would be like, no, this is the worst timing. And now it always is at the perfect timing. And like you couldn't plan it as perfect as it is. And also as you were speaking, I was thinking about with the whole lunacy concept of the moon, and yeah, and all this energy that's being created as a like a food farm from all of the ceremonies and things that are happening, and people don't really know what they're connecting into, and often they don't even check. They just assume that it's going to be love and light, and that everything is fine. And there's not really a discernment in the spiritual world. There is with some people, but as a whole, there isn't so much, because there's an assumption that everything I see is love and light, and let's just connect into that, and yeah, and see. And people don't realize that their energy is being harvested.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. It's almost like we're still, as a collective, spiritual babies, like just coming into an awareness of our spiritual nature, and everything's like the candy shop. So we got to be a little bit more discerning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, spiritual babies. I think that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So share with our audience how shifting from, I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but we can spell it out for people too, but how shifting from calling it a moon cycle or attaching our cycle to moon to just what is our cycle, how is that the gateway to our inner guidance?
Well, it helps us to be able to track our inner cycles. As I said at the start, that we feel our energy up and down through the month, more expansive, or when we want to be more withdrawn, maybe from the world. And we can sort of go deeper into this, and the connection with our body. Also, through that, manage ourselves so that we're not having these huge rises and falls within it, so that we can have more kind of equanimity in ourselves, and in that through our life. So again, we're not being pulled into these huge emotional ups and downs, and we can just really be with ourselves, and like, okay, yeah, today I feel a little bit more this way, so I'm going to tailor my day, or yeah, where I go to fit with that. And through this, the connection to ourselves, to our room space, whether we have a physical room or not, but it's still energetically it's there. And even if we've stopped bleeding, then there's still another cycle as well that's happening for women that have gone through menopause. So these cycles are shifting and evolving as we do, and it's sort of bringing ourselves into harmony with that, rather than seeing as, oh, this is me, and this is my cycle. Like, really, what's the information that your cycle has for you from day to day, and month to month, because it will keep changing. And then you can notice also if things have happened in your life that maybe then your cycle is heavier, or there's more clots, or it's lighter, and yeah, how does that reflect your emotional state as well?
I love that. It feels like it's going from, like, again, looking outside of ourselves to what we're going to be aligning to, and coming back to the
Mm,
blueprint of who we are. Like, what am I aligned to, and what is all this communicating? I love how you even go into how the blood's coming out. What is that saying? I mean, so many of us want to plug it up, stop it up, catch it in a cup or something. And it's like, how does it just naturally want to come out? And if we didn't have these things, like, what would we naturally do? We would naturally rest. We wouldn't be going out and doing a bunch of things because we would be bleeding. I mean, it
mm,
just, I feel like it really brings us back to our feminine nature. And when I feel into just even the concept of bleeding in between our legs, that's something a man will never experience. Like, he's never going to understand I'm bleeding in between my legs for a few days and I can't be out in public. It's just such a contrast. And for me, it's like remembering that the rest is just as profitable as the doing. And that's part of the
yeah.
feminine way, is like resting, refilling, integrating, and then re-emerging.
Yeah, yeah, and working it for you. So as I said, now is the perfect time, because I've got these days at home, and usually also I plan to be at home at this time, so that I can do things like my newsletter that might take me a day or half day to do, or these, yeah, like admin type things, or research and studies. So it's where again, I've got this more insular feeling, but at the same time I'm really harnessing the creativity of the life force of the blood, so that I'm putting it out there with my newsletter, or I'm creating an event, or yeah, it's like I might not be in the world, I'm sort of in the house, but I'm actually taking myself out into the world in a much bigger way through that.
Can you speak into how our wombs hold energetic imprints, emotions, or ancestral patterns, societal conditioning? Because that's going to lead into what we're going to go into a little bit later.
Yeah. The way I think of it is like the womb is like a treasure chest. So the like an alchemical vessel or a cauldron, and it's like a store cupboard. Like what are we keeping in there? Who are we keeping in there? And this can range from the epigenetics from the family, like things with hormones, with behaviors, with patterns about relationships and pregnancies or not pregnancies. And then also, of course, all of our creative power as well, because we've got our personal power more in the belly, and then we've got the creative power in the womb. And I feel that it's really important to bring those together, because often people are in one or the other. But imagine if you brought your personal and your creative power into oneness, you're like a superpower. And you can create and do so much through this. And of course, from relationships, lovers, the DNA from saliva, semen, all of this can also be held there as well. So
DNA
there's
from saliva? You mean every person we kiss is in us? I've been
this,
aware about like the DNA exchange between semen, but I have
yeah.
not looked into saliva. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, well, in a similar way, because it's holding our genetic imprint. So whether you're kissing or licking, it's going into that person's body. And and can also be held there energetically as well, depending on where things have gone in your relationship. And then of course having sex with your bleed as well, it's even more potent. And there's then this exchange with the blood. So this in ancient times was thought of something that was very, very magical. And that's why in some religions they say not to have sex when you're on your period, because of how potent a woman is at this time and the influence supposedly that she can have on a man. And many years ago I read somewhere about anointing the back of the third eye here, the soft spot at the top of the neck, anointing yourself or anointing your partner with your menstrual blood, because this was like the really true and ancient way to activate the receiving of feminine information and energy. So there's so much that's held. So there's some homework for everybody to try that out. And also putting it in your belly button as well. And I know lots of people, they collect their blood in moon cups and they feed their plants and things, but you can also feed it back to yourself at these entry points. And some people I've met, they do body painting with blood or paintings on paper as well. So there's lots of ways that you can connect with this, and the perspective I'm coming from is more about how can I learn more about myself and how can I be more of myself, because I know some people are into blood magic and this isn't my thing at all. It's like what can I bring to myself in the remembering that my blood holds, especially from my ancestral line as well.
I like that distinction of blood magic versus this is already mine and I'm just seeing how I can give it back to myself.
Mm, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about the stuff that's held in the womb just from a body language perspective, because I think this will help
Mhm.
the context of the conversation. So, our body is a record keeper of everything. And for women, we hold so much in our womb space. Emotion. This is where we process our emotions, like in our belly, in our lower abdomen. This is where our stomach and our guts are. So, this is all about how we process emotions, how we feel and sense the world. And when a woman isn't feeling safe, she's going to express a lot of that in her womb space. I'm convinced that a lot of the issues that we have around fertility and a woman's cycle is directly connected to trauma. Things like endometriosis or stillbirth or lots of miscarriages, if you've ever had an abortion, stuff like that. All of this holds trauma in the womb, and it's going to affect the life that we create, right? If our energy is caught up in trauma, it's not creating life. So when we heal that trauma, when we heal these stories, then our energy is able to create life that feels more in alignment with something that's going to thrive. And so what I feel Katie is talking about is clearing out a lot of what is in our womb, creating a healthy space for life to grow, whether it's a physical life or it's just our creativity that's coming out of us. And sometimes these patterns can carry on from our ancestors, from people before us. I know when I look at my history and I see all of the sexual assault and the incest that happened, it's been generations. It showed up in my body too, with my daughter not being born healthy and dying early, passing on early, because I didn't have the space inside of me to create a thriving life. And so the health of our womb space and our emotions, which are so intimately connected to that, is so vital for humanity, like how we're actually birthing humanity. And I'm curious if you could share with us how tuning into our bleed is able to provide messages for healing and alignment. And really, that alignment is to our authentic blueprint.
Yeah, and everything you said just now, I completely agree. Yeah, this sort of intergenerational trauma that's passed down is so inherent for everybody, and it's only through doing this self work now, as soon as whatever point in your life you can get into that, and this is going to transform things not only for yourself but yeah, your daughters and for the sons too, and of course going back through the line. Um, I also wanted to
Can I
mention
pause you
about,
really quick and ask you to speak louder?
yeah,
Your voice is really soft on my end.
okay, yeah, it's really strange. Okay, I'll do my best to speak up more. Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, that is actually better.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I also wanted to mention that there's a practice in Egypt and Turkey and some of the Middle Eastern countries called hijama or higama, and this is cupping, and then where they kind of poke the skin with like a needle. Although in Turkey they do it with cups as well, but I've not done that. But I've done it with the needle, and it's almost like putting lots of spots so onto your back, and then you put the cup and it draws the blood out. And I did this about 6 times when I first came to Egypt. So this was in the first year that I was here. And the reason for this is because I wanted to see if cleaning my blood in that way, because when it's sucked out, they put it over different areas, like say liver and kidneys and on your spine, depending where they feel drawn to, and then the quality of the blood that comes out. So all kinds of strange things come, like stringy bits and clotted blood and black blood, and then some of it is really fresh. And it's crazy when you see that this is coming from, say, your liver, and you see that it's just like the, and knowing that the liver is where we hold anger and frustrations and rage and then seeing maybe on another part of you, and it's just so fresh and so kind of fluid, and you're like, wow, that's, you can see that it looks really healthy. And I had really deep ancestral healing through doing this, and yeah, I mean it's quite an unusual thing to do, and interestingly it's done with the moon as well, with the full moon.
Oh,
when
they do it on the full
when there's,
moon? Well, it makes
if it's
sense
in done
because
in a
that's when you
traditional
fill
way.
up, right?
Yeah, with the more, yeah, the blood's coming up to be let. So there's particular dates if it's been done in the traditional way. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because this really changed also. It was part of my cycle changing as I was clearing out this sort of old cellular blood. Now I've forgotten what your question was. Sorry, can you repeat it?
That's all right. Yes. So we're talking about how to tune into our bleed and the messages that it's able to provide to us to align to like more of who we are, more of our blueprint.
Yeah, I think smelling it is really insightful, especially if you use a moon cup, it's easier to do this. And noticing at the beginning, like, is the blood really fresh or is it a bit brown or a bit dark colour? Because that's usually from the previous cycle, and it means that for whatever reason you retained some of it. So this can be a sign that you're kind of letting go, but you're not letting go fully. And then yeah, just noticing the smell, like, is it kind of a fresh mud blood smell, or is it a bit sour smelling, or was it sweet smelling? And then again, this can also reflect the emotions that you've been feeling in the month previously. And yeah, and just what's happening in your body. Like, is it in an alkaline state? Was it in a very kind of sour, like acidic state? And so all these different things are kind of giving you clues and hints as to where you're at. And of course, then you have to have the awareness and tracking yourself of, yeah, where have my emotions been and what's been happening for me in these weeks. And so it becomes then like your body and your blood is talking to you. So then if you feel that, oh, okay, it's a couple of days later than I thought it would be, you can then speak to your body and like, hey, come on, what's happening here? I'm ready to go, ready to bleed. Because sometimes, like when you kind of feel everything is building and you're like, oh, I just want it to come out, then yeah, you can talk to your body and say like, okay, let's co-create this here, and yeah, and get things started.
As you're sharing this, what's coming to my mind is this phrase over and over that was in the Bible, there's power in the blood. And I'm getting it so much more now, like the inversion of what was taught to us through the life of Yeshua. I feel like the power in the blood is like the power of the woman's blood.
Mm,
Because what you're describing to me is when we look, just even visual observation of the blood, it's going to give us the emotional temperature of what we've gone through that month. Are we thriving or are we bitter and sour about life? Is there energetic stuff left over from the last month, or are we really like starting this month fresh? I mean, and when I think about it on the grand scheme of things, if every single woman, half of humanity is doing this, and we are taught to like actually listen to the emotions through the bleed, literally we can heal all of humanity. And that to me is like going back to that phrase of there's power in the blood, there's healing in the blood. Well, yes, if we would listen to what the blood is saying, then we could heal ourselves, right? This energy is being let go of for a reason. So I'm fascinated. Stuff is going off in my brain.
yeah, and also of course, if from our partners and the interaction that we have with them throughout the month, and this can also show up in our blood. So then you have the thing, well, am I being unconsciously being a healer through sex? And is that person processing themselves through my body, and especially through my womb and through my blood? And do I want to do that? And do I want to be that space to take it all on for that person, or can I give that responsibility back to them and deal with my own shit and let them deal with theirs?
That says so much too, because when I feel into some of the collective patterns of how women share their sexual energy, it's become very masculine in a lot of ways where they're not as discerning with who they share their bodies with. And we have so many women with issues with their cycle, whether it's heavy bleeding, sporadic bleeding, painful bleeding. I mean, when I hear of women who have really painful bleeds, I just think, what is your body going through emotionally? I don't really experience super painful or heavy or long bleeds. And I found like the more homeostasis I create within myself, the easier my bleed is. And so I'm curious if you want to speak into that at all as well.
Yeah, I also agree with this as well. And just while it's in my mind as a little offshoot, they just recently in Egypt they've discovered these cups from I can't remember what year, but they're saying that it's the first evidence of these sort of ritual drinks which contained blood and semen and plant medicines. They're not saying, but I suspect it's Blue Lotus. Yeah, and it's the cup of Bez, who's one of the deities. And I thought, oh wow, it's like they're saying that there's kind of human fluids that were mixed within this drink that was obviously used in ceremonies. And also there was called drinking the blood, they called it starfire. And this was used again in rituals because of the power of a woman's blood and ingesting that and the information that that can bring. So I just wanted to add that in there as well.
This is so much. Like if it feeds our plants, if it's good for our plants, then it's good for so many things. I remember watching some videos and you'd have to go down, some rabbit holes, but one of the shady characters in this matrix was talking with a group of black women specifically about how their bleed was so important and that they don't understand why women just discard their blood. It's the most powerful thing. And these are people involved in very dark things. I can't say it on here without getting flagged. It has to do with this.
Yeah.
So these individuals understand the power that we hold within our bodily fluids, and they understand the power of a woman's bleed, and so we do ourselves a service to understand it as well. So
Yeah, and I think sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think again it's why we're directed into this collective lunacy of the moon as well, because for that period of time, if women are kind of not themselves because they're so pulled by their emotions or the moon emotions, then they're not fully in their power. Because I mean, of course, it's great to express and to connect with emotions that are coming up, but if it's to the extent that we're so overwhelmed with them that we can't do anything else, then this is like a distraction, and it's taking our power, or we're giving our power away to that each month. For a week, for some women it's 2 weeks, the build up. So what else could they be doing in that time that is so potent and powerful in this world? What could they be bringing to the collective otherwise?
That leads into my next question, which is how can we set ourselves free from these collective narratives about cycle and embrace what's ours?
Again, the communication with the body. And so I say things to my body like, come on, do you really need to be with the moon like this? Like we have a choice in what we can do here, and what would it be like if we bled on a different day to when the moon is full or the moon is new, and what might that feel like? So I keep it really light and questions like, yeah, what would that feel like, or how would that change things in my life if? And I think that this is also something that we're trained out of, to talk to our body and to hear our body's response. And our womb has so much to tell us, whether it's about our bleed or it's when we're getting involved with a potential partner. And often there's a very full yes, or there can be lots of warning signs, but we ignore them because of everything else that's taking over. But our womb is really the compass that we have to guide us with all of this. So yeah, so talking to your body, and in the time that you're bleeding, also really nurturing, like fully being with yourself and what's happening in your bleed at that time. And through this, I feel that yeah, we just get more and more integrated in ourselves. And maybe keeping a journal, or like if it's saying about the smell, or if it's heavy, if it's clotty, keeping a journal each month so you can see if there's a pattern with with things that happened at work, or you've been on holiday and then something's different, and like how's this pattern flowing through the year. And then you can start to see where you're being pulled off your center, and you can recognize it as it's happening. So you can think, okay, yeah, I don't need to go into that in the way that I might have done before.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is presence. If we're giving our presence to
Yeah,
ourselves, we're not paying attention to the moon.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and things like if there's an eclipse and people are running to look at it, I stay in the house and do something else.
Do
And the
the
same
opposite.
with, yeah, and with the full moon as well. I'm kind of like, okay, and then if I
Full moon
happen to
party,
be
I'm staying
outside.
home. That sounds crazy. We were even talking before the show. We don't even know what the cycle of the moon is right now. Like I will only know it if I'm outside and I happen to see it's really big. But it's not in my daily awareness anymore. I'm so consumed with what I am experiencing that I'm not really paying attention to what day is the moon.
Exactly. And when my children were small, they knew at that time that my bleed would come on the full moon, and they would recognize it and say 2 days before, and they would see it was almost full, and they'd say, "Mama, it's nappy time for you," because they would call pads nappies,
Oh, that's
and they
so
would bring them to me. Yeah, they would tell people it's okay, she needs her nappies now. So yeah, so they kind of obviously were living with me, and they got to recognize that there was the moon and there was me bleeding. So there was this funny thing between us as when they were small. Yeah, and then this started to shift.
So, one of the things that we are going to go into, and I have no idea what this is, so I'm going to be learning with the audience, is conception downloads. And I want you to first explain to the audience what they are and then how these shape a person's physical and spiritual experience.
Yeah. This also relates to the blood as well because of our bloodlines. So if you imagine that everything that you are contains everything that has already been and is to come in your bloodline. And so this can be from the experiences that they've had, and as you mentioned, having miscarriages and births. Also, what I find interesting is it includes all the deathing experiences, because of course our ancestors have all passed on. So all of the experiences, whether peaceful deaths, violent deaths, this is also being seen through our eyes. Also, any kind of magical work that's been done at any point in time in the bloodline, if people have been involved in things like rituals with blood, there can be blood oaths and covenants and sex magic that has tied future generations into some kind of soul contract, which is often about power. It might be with deities or to a land. And of course, blood spilt on the land through war as well. This can tie families to that. And I find that interesting as well with the countries that we're drawn to go to. Often it doesn't make sense, but you feel like, oh, I really need to go there. And sometimes this can be because, yeah, maybe our ancestors fought and died there, or they just died there, but their blood and your cellular memory is within the land. So all of this, and especially if there are soul contracts that are to particular energies or entities, this gets downloaded at conception, and it can also be orchestrated pre-conception because there's energies or consciousnesses or unconsciousnesses who can see when we're coming into that preconceptive being. And then when we're in the womb, all of the family iniquity. So this is the soul contracts, the blood oaths, the things that we owe, that we've created to other things or places at some point in time, all gets downloaded through the belly button because this is where we're connected through the umbilical cord to our mum. And of course, our mum is holding all the epigenetic information as well. And this is brought into our body before we're even birthed. So we're already dealing potentially with a lot of stuff before we come into the world and then get bombarded with everything else. And I'm really interested in supporting people to get free from this because I work with a lot of survivors of uh, these kind of things, and often they've been tied into this, and this can be from, say, people in their family that have been in secret societies. This kind of thing. And so hopefully that makes sense of what I'm talking about. And this can then affect, as you said, behaviors, people that they may be attracted to, and just the choices that they make in life, because there can be something that's literally in their blood that's directing them with an agenda into what they connect to, like whether it's moon ceremonies and rituals or particular people who are also maybe from other bloodlines. And if we can get free, and when we get free from this, and we have our connection to our full autonomy, then it might surprise people who they really are. Would they make the same choices? So yeah, it's very interesting. And of course, there's not really much about it online or science-wise or anything. It's come mostly from working with people and seeing the same patterns come up again and again, and the same kind of responses, and then the massive changes that people then go on to make in their life when they release themselves from this. Because of course I'm there to guide and support, but it has to come from themselves, because if someone in the bloodline has created that binding, then they from their bloodline also need to reclaim their power and explode it out of existence.
Was so powerful. It reminds me of something I heard my soul tell me years ago, where it said, heal the blood, heal the land. And it, like, I'm alchemizing everything you've been saying this episode. And one of the things you talked about was how, I just had a thought and it went somewhere. Yeah, you were talking about your blood being drawn from different parts of your body. Like this is the land, right? And so by drawing the blood from the different parts of the body, you're seeing what part of the land is diseased. And then in that, being able to, like you said, oh, it's my liver, I have dark sludgy sludge in here, like this doesn't even look like blood. Wow, there's a lot of anger for me to clear out, lots of stuff to look at. So that's like a huge sign of where to clean it out. And the more we clean our blood out, the more we're touching on these ancestral pieces, right? It's not just me, it's also the ancestors, but then also looking at the bigger picture of the different energies that we've taken in. Like, to me, this just makes the human experience so much more holy, like sacred, in understanding how all of these different pieces are affecting our blood, and not just a woman's bleed, but the actual blood that flows through our veins.
Yeah,
Yeah, the power
and
of
it
the
also,
word.
yeah, that's so cool that you heard that. And yeah, then it makes more sense of why there's perpetual war and blood being spilled, and the loosh that is kind of fed on from that blood. It's like a blood sacrifice.
Wow. And this is like bringing in such a philosophical, human, spiritual question for me right now. I'm not sure what the answer is. Like, my soul tells me what the answer is, but then my mind's like, yeah, but how's that going to work? So I'm just going to tell you what the question is. So the question
Okay, I'll do
is,
my best.
and maybe we don't have an answer, because this is the Raw Love podcast where we travel through the mystery. So maybe we don't have the answer today. We're just going to put a question out there and play with it. So my question is, I often look to the life of Yeshua as a role model. And I feel like one of the things he modeled for us was, like, when he was dying, whether or not it was real or not, okay, when he was dying, he said, forgive them because they don't understand what they're doing. Now, we're all aware this guy was trained and had the power to walk on water and through walls and disappear in crowds. Like, he didn't have to die. Okay, let's just get that straight. He could have saved himself. And he could have also taken out vengeance on these people, right? If he's multiplying fish, he could multiply poisonous snakes, right? Like, it could have been anything, but yet what he modeled for us was peace most of the time. And it seems to me like the only way to really stop this blood cycle is no more bloodshed. And if I take that to the extreme, what does that mean for the current existing psychopaths? Like, do we sequester them and rehabilitate them? Because killing seems to not be the solution. I'm curious what your perspective is on that.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was thinking that with the Jesus on the cross story, one of the details that's always mentioned is about him being speared in the side or in the rib,
Yeah,
and the blood's coming out. And I've
the blood
always
and
thought,
water.
okay, yeah, so why is there a focus on this as well? And yeah, I don't know exactly what the answer is. Also, as you were speaking, I thought about how humans, women, we're the only ones bleeding month after month. Other animals like cats and dogs, they have a certain season for breeding and they bleed at that point. And why is it that we're bleeding every month? And I mean, of course, yes, it can be to clean out, but there must be other ways that that can happen. So, yeah,
Maybe
there's a
we
lot of
bleed so much
questions.
because we have so much trauma and we're like on the hypnosis of the moon.
Yeah, that it's like a shedding. Yeah, I mean, it is a shedding, isn't it? But it's a shedding of so much more than just not being pregnant, and that our body has produced that environment in case. But yeah, I think you're right. The answer for the the clown world isn't more killing. It's got to be something that's more coming connecting to the heart, and that is sustaining peace, because this insanity what's happening, and what has happened through the eons as well, and the effect that this is having through the collective of what's happening in the world right now. It's like, yeah, a ripple through each of us.
I really contemplate questions like this because of the things that I have endured and the things that I've seen other people endure. Like, part of me, I want to be honest about this because I know other people are going to feel like this. So let's just be honest with the human experience. There are individuals that I have thought about, I would love to see them be unalived because of how much damage they have caused in this world. And I've imagined even me doing something, although I don't think I could ever really go through with it. But I have imagined it, like, could I bring myself to that position of, exacting justice or getting revenge? And the highest version of myself, my highest self, really trusts that if we were to be loved, we could heal ourselves. We hear all these stories of people healing themselves from spinal injuries, being paralyzed, and what have you. Like, who's to say we can't heal narcissism and psychopathology, especially with all the stuff that is currently being hidden from us, like all the technologies that are available? Like, what could we really do to facilitate deep cellular level spiritual healing in individuals and avoid revenge? Because that's what it is at the end of the day. It is revenge. Like, it's just a vengeful heart that wants to go murder somebody who's been wreaking havoc. And I can call it justice all day long, but at the end of the day, is it love? I don't know if it's love.
Yeah, I guess it's what your perspective is on love, because everybody has something a little bit different depending on what their experience of love is. And I think there's a need for a deprogramming for these people who are orchestrating these events, the deprogramming of the programs that they have maybe been coerced into, or that they maybe don't even realize that they're in, that also could come from the family line, and from childhood, that they've been groomed, you could say, for these roles. Yeah, there's so much that's under the surface that isn't in the public eye, that interlinks all of it, and then who's really running the show behind all of that.
And as we're talking this out, I feel like creators telling me, I got this under control. Like, if I wanted to, I could kill all of these motherfuckers. Like, I could literally smoke everyone. And yet, here we are going through this collective awakening. And maybe the wisdom in this is we're feeling how painful it is to live disconnected from our true nature. And until we experience the full breadth of that pain, we're not going to turn back to what is really giving us life, to what is really natural.
Yeah, Yeah, and also again about connecting into that and really connecting to our body and the communication from our body. I recommend, say when you know you're going to be on a bleed and in the summer and you go camping, or even you could be at home and in the garden, and don't use any kind of moon cup or tampon, sanitary towel or anything, so that you free bleed. And when you get this feeling like your body's telling you, okay, something's going to come out, then you go, and whether it's to the toilet or you go into the woods or something, if you're camping, and you just bleed there, and then, okay, that's out, and then you continue again. And this is really interesting because you start to get very subtle signals rather than your body just, okay, bleeding, and you're not noticing it. You get the subtle information that, okay, it's about to come out now. Right, go and squat and let it come and then continue again.
I like to do that too with part of my bleed. I can feel like if I know I have to get stuff done, I will use something. But if I'm at home, I can feel when it's coming out, and I'll just like either go to the toilet or my backyard and go pee, and it just comes out with the pee. I sit there for a little bit, see if anything else wants to come out. And I feel like that's beautiful too, because the earth is reading our information, just like the trees and the roots, they connect their nutrients and their information, right? So I feel like when I'm putting my blood into the earth, I'm sending a message to the earth. This is where I am. Bring me who needs me, and bring me what I need.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So let's get into your process that you wanted to share with us for clearing the codes of iniquity. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, the soul contracts.
Yes.
Okay, so let me move my chair.
So we've shared this entire foundation so that we can warm up to why we're doing this practice with Katie.
Yeah, and we're going to work with a Awakened Bellydance process. And so, although I know what the theme is, where it goes is it's completely intuitive. So I'm just going to follow with the energy, even though I know that different people are watching this at different times. It's still present beyond time. So if you think of, yeah, we're in the quantum timelines. Okay, so if you put your feet underneath your hips and soften your knees, and then bring your thumbs into your belly button connected, and connect all your fingers together, and then touch your first fingers. So really connect to your body, so you're not away from it. Let your hands touch. Okay, and drop down. So we're going to breathe in and out through our mouth. So breathing in and out, and in and out. Keep going with this breath, and with every out breath, imagine that your womb space, your yoni, is softening and becoming more receptive for whatever needs to transform for you today. And you may or may not know that our throat and mouth and jaw are completely connected to our yoni. And that's why I ask you to breathe through your mouth, so that as we release more here, we can release and soften here, and vice versa. So very softly taking your pelvis and your hips forward and back. When your belly's forward, breathe in. When you pull your belly in, breathe out. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you breathe out, draw your belly button to your spine and your pelvic muscles inwards and upwards. So first noticing, how does it feel to move your body in this way? Do your hips feel restricted? Are they really loose? How comfortable are you with your legs being apart? Maybe you want to take them a bit wider, or have you put them close together? You take them a bit wider and bend your knees more and continue with your pelvis forward and back and see, does that change anything? Do you feel more comfortable? Do you feel something a bit, oh, got my legs open? What does that mean? This time, as you draw in, hold your breath and tap across your pubic bone. And the word pubis in Latin, it actually means shame. So this part of our body has literally been named shame. So it's no wonder that, yeah, we hold so much here because it's been directed by the name. Okay, so when you
What
need
can we
to
call it
breathe,
instead?
Mount of Venus,
Mountain.
or Mount of Love. Yeah. So as you breathe again, taking your hips round in a circle, remember to keep your knees nice and bent. And come to the center. And again, take your hips forward and back. And if it's comfortable, make it a little bit bigger. If you feel any squeezing on your spine or your back, then do it less. You want to be comfortable with this. So all the way back, all the way in. This time, pulling in, hold your breath and tapping on your belly button. Hold your breath as long as you can. Squeeze your internal muscles. And when you need to breathe, hold your hips and shimmy them. Now take your feet a little bit wider, more bent in your knees, and make your circle even deeper. So stretching your perineum, your yoni, your anus, and opening your connection to the earth.
I feel like I'm stirring it like a cauldron.
That's it. And coming back, opening your hips and cleaning out any old roots, any stagnant roots, anything that's hiding or disconnecting you from your body to the earth. Use your breath, push it out so that this channel can open between your body and the body of the earth. And come back to your belly button and spiraling your hips. If you close your eyes and imagine that the spiral is starting from inside of your belly button, it's spiraling out through your body, through your womb, your hips, creating a spiral of light that's cleaning and cleansing any heaviness, any stagnant energies, any cords connecting you to beings or people, or to points in time where maybe your body or your room has been contracted to other energies, or temples or bloodlines, where you've been designated a role of birthing a particular being.
Are we supposed to go clockwise or counterclockwise? Does it matter?
No, whichever way you feel called to do. Come back to the center, bring your hands together and take your body into a movement like a snake. And direct your hands from your yoni to just above your belly button. And again, as your belly comes forward, breathing in. As you go back, breathing out. And you might start to feel something building from your belly button through an etheric umbilical cord that's connecting you all the way through your family line, and from your mum to your grandma, and back, all the way to the beginning. And if you close your eyes as we continue with the movement, see if you can feel or visualize what your etheric umbilical cord looks like. What's the color, the texture, the shape, the size? Is there anything attached to it? And you might not get definitive information, but just ask your body, truth body, show me what's happening with my etheric umbilical cord. What do I need to know right now? And what can I release myself from in this moment? So shimmying your hips, and like you're pulling a plug, use your hands to remove and draw out anything that's holding you captive through your umbilical. All of the family iniquity that was downloaded to you before you were born. All the problems, the soul contracts that you've taken on from your family, or the times when you've agreed to be the healer for everybody, and all the sludge is coming down to you. And then continue to do this, taking your hips into a figure of 8, twisting, turning your hips back, come back, and pull all the way till you feel you've got to the end where there's space. And this might feel like rat's tails or snakes, reptilian tails. It might feel or look like AI. You might get some kind of symbol. So all the way till the very end. And creating space within yourself. And then taking your arms and your hips into a figure of 8 movement, clearing anything that you've released, transmuting the energy with your body. Because remember, you have all the power within yourself. Clear. If you feel any heaviness anywhere in your space, you can imagine it's exploding out of this existence. And take your hands behind your back as well, clearing round and through. Noticing anything that might be hiding through your tailbone, your lower spine, any kind of disconnection from your roots. And then bringing your hips in the opposite direction, drawing your arms around from back to front, and creating energetic boundaries around your womb space, around your belly button, and all the way up and around you, stating and reclaiming your space over your head, all the way down your legs, over your feet, coming back to your center, breathing through your spine, breathe, noticing how you feel in your body, especially through your central line. And then bring your thumbs to the corners just between your eyebrow and eyes, gently pushing there, and shimmy your hips. Squeeze your thumbs inwards and upwards. And then take your hips back into the snaky, watery movement. And tap from your forehead to your thymus. And to your belly button. Bring one hand to your womb, one hand to your belly, connecting your creative power and your personal power. And remembering that you have the choice, you have the power to free yourself from any fuckery that's in your bloodline. It doesn't have to define you anymore. And breathe. Keep your breath in your heart. Giving yourself permission to release all the programs and the parts of you that have been conditioned to take on everybody else's shit and do the healing for them. Send it back through the timelines, through the bloodlines, and let them take responsibility for themselves. Bring your hands over your belly button, very tiny spiraling circles, creating golden vortex of light through your belly button, all the way through your center, and your spirals becoming slower and smaller until your body stops moving and the energy continues to move inside of you. And the process keeps shifting and healing, awakening. And one last breath, reaching up and round, and bring the palms of your hands to the earth, breathing out, letting go of all the stories. Slowly coming back up. Give yourself a hug. Say thank you. Kiss in. Thank you, body, for guiding me. Look around, check everything looks clear, that you're here and present now. Feel your roots, your connection. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, thank you, Katie.
Sure.
I had a lot of intuition access during that time. I'm gonna have to do that practice again. I was yawning the entire time. So it was extremely activating. I appreciated just moving my body, and I've been feeling into my hips a lot more lately. I would say recently, because they've been kind of achy, and I I need more hip movement. So I'm going to keep doing this practice. I also feel like it's going to awaken something because I've been in this like birthing new creation phase, and it's like I'm creating space for that creation to come through. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. It's really lovely to share and see where it goes. Yeah.
I feel like what I've really gotten from this is how our bleed and our bodies are sacred teachers, and how important it is to honor the womb as a portal for healing and our empowerment, and also the healing and empowerment of humanity. We, like you talked about throughout this episode, we hold so much in our blood, including the DNA of everyone we've been with and all the children we've had. And so treating our bodies as the sacred portals that they are. And I'm curious if you have any final insights you'd like to share with us from your own wisdom.
I guess it's a kind of repeat really is to communicate with your body and keep questioning and don't look for definitive answers, because at first you might ask questions and you think, I have no idea, I don't feel anything, I don't see anything. So we've been so disconnected from our bodies. So it's like anything, it's going to take time and practice, and the information might come in other ways. Like there might suddenly be a word in a song that's on the radio in the car, or you see a color, or it can be anything. So look for the information from everywhere, and be open to that, and also open to not always having a concrete answer for something. see where that takes you.
Beautiful. Yeah, we're building a relationship, and in that is trust. And in the beginning, it might be one word, two word answers. Are you really listening? And then after a while, the body begins to open up more as we show ourselves, you can trust me with this. So thank
Yeah,
you so much, Katie, for all
thank
the
you.
wisdom and all the rabbit holes we got to go down, and also for redoing this with me, because I feel our take two was so much better than our take one.
I think they were both good, but probably this one was more focused.
I feel like the last one was more for us, and this one, I feel like the audience is going to get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so.
Well, Katie's information, her contact information is going to be below. She has a lot of services and retreats that are available. So definitely check her out. And thank you again for joining us. And I will see
Yeah,
you
thank you.
on the next episode.